Yo, what is up guys? Today I'm gonna do a full guide on Withering Fist. This build has been great from leveling and all the way to tier 4 content, including all lair bosses. This build can speed farm up to pit 90 and probably caps it around pit 100. This build really excels at speed farming and blowing up big packs, and overall it's been really fun to play. The Nightmare Dungeons this season give us a faster Chaos Armor than Infernal Hordes. Just farming them, and this build really flies and can farm a lot of Chaos Armor. If you've ever wanted to play Withering Fist, this season has definitely made it come online. The Chaos Armor gives us some huge buffs we didn't have access to before. I played this build with the end goal, doing a Touch of Death pit pushing build. And although I've now just like fallen in love with this build, I've just been putting so much more effort into it. It's so much fun to play. I use it now for all my content. If you do want to move into a Touch of Death build for like pit 100 or maybe like up to like pit 120 plus, this build slides into it very easily with just a couple of item changes. So I've got the build descriptions in the link, and you'll see there's two different ones, the leveling and more of the end game one. Because of the nature of the Chaos Armor, we have a lot of different options in our slots, but I'll go over that in the armor. But you can see between the two, you could the skill trees are exactly the same. The Paragon board's the same. It's mainly just the armor as you'll progress along. So the basics of the builds, Withering Fist, obviously. Now, Withering Fist is just a basic skill, so there's not really too much to say. You can just run it from the start. The main thing to note is that it does a huge amount of poisoning damage. So the initial damage is 56k. I mean, I've got 16 ranks of it, and then it's applying 773,000 poisoning damage over 6 seconds. And this whole build is around applying that poisoning damage and then blowing it straight up with Noxious Resonance. And that is like the basic of the builds. There's nothing really key that you need to get. There's obviously a lot of items you can get along the way, but there's nothing specifically to bring this online. You can just start from level 1 and just start blasting. So for the skill tree, go over that first. Obviously, Withering Fist, we want to max this out and enhance Withering Fists. We don't really care about the Vigor, but what we really care about is Sharp Withering Fists. So every third attack spreads its poisoning to 5 nearby unaffected enemies. Hitting vulnerable will also spread that effect to all it hits. So we want to spread as much Withering Fist poisoning damage as we can, so then later we can blow them all up. We want to max out follow through. Once you get your Sep and Zentech, you'll get more stats of this, so this is really nice to have. Vortex. So I want to get Vortex mainly just to pull everything in. With Noxious Resonance, I'll come back. So with Noxious Resonance, your critical strikes cause an enemy to burst like 300% of the total instantly, and 10% of the burst of surrounding enemies. So last season it was 20%, and the direct damage was I think 180%. So the AoE is about exactly the same, but we're doing a lot more single target damage now. But we want to get everyone grouped up to do like bigger damage. I mean, the single target damage is still really nice, but bigger damage is just better when they're all grouped up. So Vortex is really nice. And then critical strikes with Vortex reduce the cooldown by 1 second. So we just want to get 1 point in this. Then we want to get Unrestrained Power and Apex. So we will be applying Vulnerable all the time, so we want to make sure we get these big multipliers. Focal Point. If you do early on don't have enough chance to get enemies vulnerable and you do have a polearm, you could get more points in this. I definitely did along the way for certain periods, so just keep that in mind. Ravager. Ravager isn't really needed that much. We just want this to get potent stacks. So it doesn't really do that much. I mean, we don't have much inherent healing. We will get some healing from Scourge, but mainly this is just to get potent stacks up. Okay, next, Endurance. We want to get Endurance so we get Perseverance, just so we get more damage reduction. We will have a lot of stacks of Resolve. So our Resolve stacks here, damage reduction by 20. And when I go over the Paragon node, we do have a glyph which will increase our damage for every stack of resolve. So we want to keep resolve at max, so we get max resolve every time we use Armored Hide, and we just want to get extra damage reduction, mainly because of the seasonal, which we'll go over later, but we're sitting at half health all the time, and we're basically just relying on barrier, so getting damage reduction is pretty nice to have. Then Scourge, we just want to get 1 point in Scourge, mainly for Enhanced Scourge, so we get a 1% multiplier up to 50%. This is really strong, and the Adaptable Scourge for healing, because we don't have much healing coming from Withering Fist, unlike other skills. So this is pretty nice to have. So we'll just have like Ravager and Scourge helping us with heals. But outside of that, we're pretty much reliant on just having a barrier. We want to get Nourishment, want to max this out for increased poisoning damage. That's a big one. Resilient. We'll just get 1 point in this. We'll have enough barrier generation from the seasonal powers. And we want to max out Dominant, so we get a 15x multiplier for 10 seconds when we're attempting to knock down. And we'll have this up nearly all the time, as you'll see from the Paragon node. Brilliance. So our movement speed isn't the best, but this is just a nice passive to have, mainly for the multiplier. And Acceleration, this is really strong. So, I mean, as you can see, I've got 10 points into this, but this scales really well, and it does 80% multiple increase for 3 seconds. And if you can get Sun Gorgeous Gorge it, you'll get a lot of points in Acceleration. Now, why this is really good is because, yes, the additional evade is nice to have, but after you use an evade or a mobility skill, your eagle skills do X damage. And Withering Fist is a mobility skill. So every time we use Withering Fist, we're always going to have this damage up all the time. And I should note that we do have Eagle as our secondary. And yeah, we are running Evil Walker, which we'll go over later. But if you are still leveling and you find that you're fine with the tanky damage, you could run Eagle as your main Spirit Hall if you just wanted to get more points in this to do more damage. But I still think Gorilla's better, just nice to have for the barrier and for Viscous Shield, which we'll go over later. Potent. Again, I'm getting a lot of points from Sun Gorgeous Gorge it. So this is just going to give us like one of the biggest multipliers, I think, in the game. And we just want to make sure we have Ravager up so we can get these stacks up. Ravenous and Oppressive, again, just for damage multipliers. The Protector. So I've maxed this out. Mainly because we want to get the cooldown as low as possible. This will give us a massive barrier, along with giving us Unstoppable and a 30x multiplier. And this will also go in with our new unique glove slot, which gives us another 60% multiplier, and it allows us to cast the Protector at range, which is just like really nice to have. So like if you cast it right over here, and then it will bring everyone in, similar to Vortex. It will group them all in, so you can apply it at range, and then you just jump in. You might have seen the videos like earlier, like I'll just do that, and then I'll jump in, so everything's grouped up. So it's like having Vortex, but even nicer to use. Resolution, again, for just another multiplier. We don't care about a max figure that much. Like we kind of do. But we just don't have that many points. But you could play around with this, but again, it'll come back to when I go over the gear and the aspects, and I'll show you why maximum vigor isn't actually that bad for us. And lastly, Supremacy, another multiplier. And Noxious Resonance, this is the star of the show. Another fist icon. And this is, yeah, doing most of our damage, so we're just going to be bursting all the damage straight away. Okay, Spirit Hall, so briefly touched on that just now, but Gorilla is going to be our main Spirit Hall, mainly because we just want to have a lot of barrier, and this also goes in hand with Viscous Shield, which we'll go over later in the Paragon board. And we'll be running Eagle, so every other cast is guaranteed critical strike that grants you a 20x vulnerable for 5 seconds. So we do want to get a lot of vulnerable damage. We also want to make sure we have vulnerable all the time. Another one is when we're running critical strikes with Vortex reduce its cooldown by 1 second, so we can nearly guaranteed having crit up, well, 50% of the time. But that's just really nice to have on top of that, of just not having that much crit. Okay, before I get into the gear, we'll just go over the runes. So the runes I'm running is Moni. Moni is cast 2 mobility skills. So again, Withering Fist is a mobility skill. So we'll just have this up basically all the time. So you could run whatever you really want, but on Moni, having Earthen Bulwark is definitely, I think, the best. Mainly, again, because we're going to be pretty low HP, we're going to be pretty barrier reliant, and we want to make sure that we're always capped on our barrier like at full. Well as this being a survivability rune, this actually is a really good damage multiplier for Viscous Shield. The second rune I'm running is Mott, which gives us damage reduction with Dark Shroud. I think you could also run the Ohm build to get 15 X multiplier. You could also run early on, you could run Thule, which gives us freeze and vulnerable. Now the freeze is really nice because this goes hand in hand with using one of the aspects early on. But we'll go into this later. But you deal 20 increased damage over time for enemies afflicted by different crowd control effects. And if we can just get another crowd control effect, you're doing another 20x multiplier. So early on, that can be really nice to have. Okay, now to the fun part, we'll go over the gear. So I can't put exactly what you need in every slot because of the chaos armor and its very chaotic nature. But we can just give you like some overall guidelines. So for endgame, Sep and Zentech, obviously we want to be using that. Fists of Fate, Harmony of Ebawaka, Heshe e Kasungi, I like to call them Heshes, and finally Sunbird's Gorget. So any of these you want to use in any slot, it doesn't really matter as long as you get all of them for the best output. Once you do get Sep and Zontek, then you can run a weapon. That's going to be like a really big damage boost. But before that, so while you're leveling up early on, your first goal should be is to get a few of the uniques. So we can get Heshes in the gloves, get Harmony of Ebawaka on the helm, and you can get Sep and Zentech on the weapon slot. Now, Sep and Zentech is really nice, mainly because every third cast of the basic skill strikes 3 times. So as you can see here, if I don't click anything, you can see like in front it does like this 3 strikes. So we can actually just target on the ground and you can hit from range, which does open up a few potentials. In general, that's what Sep and Zentech is doing for the third cast. But for the seasonal power we've got this season, with Alacrity, your basic skills gain 30% attack speed, the dash range is increased by 50%, and the third attack happens now every second attack. So that's what they're talking about when they're saying every third cast of basic skill strikes 3 times. It's now just going to happen every 2 times, every second time, sorry. A few outliners here. So Band of First Breath. This can be really nice because 1, we get an increase of maximum resolve. Maximum resolve is going to scale with our Gorilla Colossal glyph. And this goes hand in hand with this aspect early on, Tenacity. So you gain resolve for each vigor you gain while at maximum vigor. This can overfill your resolve by 5 stacks. So we're always going to be having full vigor because it's a basic skill, which means we'll always have 5 stacks. This also means our Armored Hide stacks, sorry, our resolve stacks from Armored Hide will be full all the time. So we'll have mass damage reduction. So again, in the skill tree when I went over why we'd get this is because we're going to have maximum resolve all the time. So we can have +5 from Tenacity. You can then get another +4 plus Masterworking on this. So in total, I think you could get maybe like 17 stacks. So that's going to give you a 34x multiplier because we get 2 We get 2 for every single one. So Colossal. You deal 2% increased damage for each stack of Resolve you have. So that's a really big multiplier early on, especially when you don't have Chaos Armor. I really recommend getting this because it really works well with the Gorilla skills. It gives us more damage reduction and it gives us more damage. If you do happen to get a Band of First Breath early on, you could definitely whack this on. You don't necessarily have to get it because it is kind of annoying. You have to cast Evade, but you only have to do it once every 5 seconds. But yeah, it's just a good thing to note. And then for another armor slot, or an offensive slot, Creeping Death. Now, what I said before with the vulnerable rune, that also applies Frozen. You deal another 20x for your damage over time. The other one is unstoppable enemies and staggered bosses take 40x increased damage over time from you. So because all our damage is damage over time, this is one of the best multipliers to use early on. So in the build guide for early on, you'll see using these 3. As soon as you can get Heshes in another slot, then whack on Creeping Death onto gloves, and probably want to make sure you get some armor on there. Otherwise, if you still have pants, try and get points into Withering Fist, and then we want to get the aspect of Tenacity. Harmony of Aberwalker is also really important early on, mainly because we want to take advantage of having both Spirit Halls, and the other one is so we can take advantage of the multipliers. So mainly Acceleration. This is going to be one of the biggest multipliers, but both Brilliance and Acceleration are going to give us huge multipliers. Okay, for weapon. So my muscle working isn't great, to be honest, but there is a few things to note. So you can see chance for Withering Fist to deal double damage. With Sep and Zentek, you have a chance for basic skills to do double damage. These do not really dip, so as long as you hit 100%, that's pretty much the main goal. And you should be able to hit 100% without even masterworking it at all. So I would try and avoid getting any hits on masterworking, and instead for Sep and Zentek, you'd probably want to get follow through and then dexterity, either one. But I'm just currently out of like Abductite and gold from doing a lot of rerolls, so it is what it is. And for damage, I would go into vulnerable damage. We just want to get as much vulnerable as we can get, because the Spirit Hall giving us 20x on vulnerable damage is just a huge buff overall. So you can see also for the gems that have gone for vulnerable damage. And for the tempers, so yeah, chance for Withering Fist to deal double damage, and then basic damage. Although you could also go into vulnerable damage as well if you get a better roll. The other thing to note is for chance for Withering Fist, if you get a Sep and Zentek with a GA on basic skill to deal double damage, and you also hit masterworking, yeah, I think you can get it up to, I think maybe 70%, 70, maybe 77%. I don't know, it can be pretty high. If you do get extremely lucky with that, on the weapon, instead of getting chance for Withering Fist or double damage, I would take Ravenous stacks. This will be another huge damage multiplier, and it will just help you tremendously. For the jewelry, so we are running Unyielding Hits. This is going to make our weapon damage increase for 1,500. Now, the thing to note is this goes off your armor. So if you have, so to get 1,500, we either need to get 45% on the amulet, which is 3,333. So when I apply Soothing Spices, which gives us 150, Song of the Mountain, which gives us another 350, you can see I'm like just under, and then I'm running Spiral Morning. Okay, so this is really important to note, so that if you have all the Chaos Armor here, you're not going to have any armor at all. If you get all the armor from the Paragon nodes, which is on the board, which we'll go over, and you run these 3, you'll get over the cap, and that's really important to note. If you still have an item and you have armor on it, you could get to 4,500. Then what you want to do is run unyielding hits onto one of the rings, and then I would swap in the rings probably for yeah, adaptability. Yeah, I'd probably get adaptability and run it onto the amulet's head. That will give us a biggest damage multiplier. Because this aspect only caps at 1,500, you just want to get it on whatever you can. But assuming you're running the same thing as me, you'll need to get 2 hits on masterworking for percent total armor, or you can get a GA on total armor. And that will give you the cap of 3,333, which is what we want to hit. The other thing to note is the tempers. So while you're leveling up on your boots and your gloves, you want to try and get at least 1 hit onto vortex eyes. That would be really important, and also on boots. If you have 2 hits, I think originally I had 2 on the legs and the boots, so that will give you like 100%. It only caps out at 100% for anything with a size increase. So try and get 100%. After that, get any barrier generation you need. And then after that, I've just taken Withering Fist size, although now I could probably go back into Vortex size because I'm not running any of those items, but I'm going to leave the temper as it is for now. With the barrier generation, we want to hit 123%. So you can see I'm at 127%, so that's perfect. So as long as you have the purple gems for barrier generation. If you don't, then I would take barrier generation on your amulet or any armor pieces you need, but just try and hit that 123%. So the last ones is Creeping Death, which we covered before, and adaptability. Also, it should be noted that while you're playing early on, you probably have Sep and Zentek in the weapon slot. So this aspect of the Moonrise, which is really strong, then move that to the gloves if you don't have Creeping Death, or put it on one of your rings, vice versa. So as long as you have these 3 aspects and aspect of the Moonrise, then you should be pretty Gucci. For the tempers, I've all gone for the Protector cooldown. I think looking back now that I've done my tempers, you probably could get the Protector cooldown on your amulet as well. Although I do think Vortex is also really nice. But I also do like the Withering Fist size. I mean, you can see it's a pretty big size. We can just take it off and we can compare. You can kind of see the difference. But when you're pulling everything in, if you can hit more units at once and then do more crits and then blow them all up at the same time, it definitely does help. With the Chaos Armor in general, a few things to note. So Sep and Zentek, it's giving us 144% multiplier. That's just huge on itself. Fist of Fate, this is giving us vulnerable. I think that's probably the most important. As you can see, I've got a really terrible crit roll, but we don't really care about crit chance on this build at all. You need hardly anything. Just make sure that you try and get a good hit on chance to make enemies vulnerable for 3 seconds, because we need to make enemies vulnerable. We can't naturally do it in the build. If you don't have a Fist of Fate, then you'll need to run on your gloves or on your rings to get a chance for enemies to make, a chance to make enemies vulnerable for 2 seconds. So make sure you have this. Lastly, the other option you could do is to run the Thule rune, which does the freeze and it also does the vulnerable onto enemies. But either way, you'll need to make them vulnerable, because the Spirit Hall is giving us a 20x on vulnerable, and the vulnerable also works with Withering Fist. So Withering Fist 3rd attack spreads poison to 5 nearby enemies, unaffected enemies, and hitting a vulnerable enemy will also spread that effect to all it hits. So we just want to make sure that we get vulnerable for that as well. And I think that's about it. The other tempers, yeah, I've done basic damage and vulnerable. I'm not too sure on the actual maths. I'll be going back and forth with lots of different things. So you can see I've got vulnerable on one and basic on the other. But either way, like both of them are really nice to have. Okay, Harmony of Everwalker. So this is going to deal nearly 150x multiplier. It's going to be one of our biggest multipliers. And on top of that, it's giving us all the multipliers to our skills, mainly that we talked about before. So getting these two eagle ones. And then just the general 150x is huge. The Heshes. So Heshes is a really nice to have item that will make it so the protector can be cast at range. And also it's giving us plus 11 gorilla skills. And because we're taking the Spirit Hall Gorilla, all our skills are gorilla skills, so we're just getting plus 11, which is huge. The ultimate cooldown reduction is also really nice to have. And it's also really nice that it comes with attack speed and vulnerable, which is what we want in this build. We don't really want crit or crit damage, we just want attack speed and vulnerable. And the last chaos item is Sunbird's Gorget. Now this item is really nice to have, and you could even run the amulet early on if you don't have it. The main thing that's really important to note is that we're getting resistance to all elements. So although you might think about, what is this item actually doing? The resistance to all elements is really important because we want to make sure we are like near resist capped. As you can see, I'm not resist capped, but it's still pretty high. But that's mainly to Sunbird's Gorget. And the movement speed as well is also really important because once we take off boots and we're running chaos armor, we're going to be a little bit slow. So this gives us the resistance, gives us the movement speed, and then it gives us 3 passives, 2 of which are huge. So Potent is giving us one of the biggest multipliers in the game, and then Acceleration is the Eagle build again. So once you get Harmony of Everwalker, you're going to get more acceleration skills. This is giving us an 80x increase in damage. It's absolutely huge. There are some other chaos uniques you could run. One of them, we said before, Band of First Breath and Pain Gorge's Gauntlets. So if you do get one of these, it's not going to do any damage on the boss unless there's like some AoE trash. But if you do have big AoE packs, this is going to give you 150x multiplier. It's really nice to have. It also gives us a stun as well. So if you're running Creeping Death, you can have another multiplier from, you could have slow, you could have the freeze, you could have fear, and you can have a stun. So that can go hand in hand. But if you do get this early on, definitely just whack it on. It's not the best in slot because it doesn't do anything on the bosses, but it's still a really big multiplier to have. Lastly, I just want to add, so in one of the gem slots, we've got the 240 armor as well, which is to hit that cap. So just make note of that as well. So we've got the 2 gems here for resist all, and then 1 with the skull for 240 armor. Okay, so the Paragon board, I've changed it, updated on the website on Mobalytics. I'll run through why I have it in this certain shape. So this season, they absolutely buffed the tits out of all the legendary nodes. They doubled them all. So when you're leveling up, what you want to do is try and hit these nodes straight away and not really worry about anything else. This will give you the biggest power amp as you're going along. So how I did it was, you can see like I went up here, I took sapping, I then would have gone straight here, I would have taken revealing, would have gone straight here, taken Viscous Shield, and then I went straight here and take Convergence. Once you have all those nodes, then you can branch out to get the glyphs. Probably the only difference would be getting the first glyph. Now there are a few different glyphs that we're running. So we're running Colossus, we're running Headhunter, we're running Spirit, we're running Bane, and we're running Canny. So you can put whatever you want in the first one, depending on what you get at the time. Just make sure that you fill out what you need to get that. Otherwise, then just go straight for all the legendary nodes. For the actual full board itself, so Colossus, that's what we're running first. You do 2% increased damage for each stack of Resolve you have. Now, we're only going to have 8 basically all the time, but early on, if you are running the aspects on the legs and also the ring, the unique ring, you could have up to, I think, 17 stacks, which is giving you 34x multiplier. That's probably going to be the biggest multiplier you can get from a glyph. So just take note of that when you're leveling up, first of all. The second glyph is Bane. This is giving our poison effects a 15% chance to deal double damage over their duration. And then we're getting 5 strength from poison damage. One thing to note is the first thing you want to do after you get all these legendary nodes, so we want to obviously get that glyph, then come back and get these resists, get this attack speed. You could probably pick this up pretty early because it's pretty close. And the last one, Opportunist. So we don't actually want any regen, but we do want these maximum resources ones. So I'll grab this one soon. The maximum resource is going to go hand in hand with our aspect of adaptability. So your basic skills deal 0.6% increased damage for each point of primary resource you have up to 500. So at the moment I'm rocking 142, but you know, that's going to give us a pretty big multiplier if you can add those on later. So just getting like 0.4 is giving us like a 0.2% multiplier. There are like a few here, but I wouldn't pick them up straight away. I would get these last and just fill out the rest of the board and then come back and get these maximum resource ones later. We've got more attack speed and we've got patience. We definitely want to get patience because, as I said, we want to get the armor. We want to get pretty much all the armor we can get on the board. The next glyph is Spirit. Now, Spirit isn't actually doing anything for our critical strike damage. So as you can see, I've left this pretty bare. As long as we get the additional bonus that critical strikes increase the damage an enemy takes from you up to 15%. So the 15% is really nice to have. And another reason I took this is because it goes well into the Touch of Death build, which I'll move into the pit pushing later. But essentially, we just want to get this for the 15x multiplier. You could take Revenge. This gives us another 15x damage and also gives us a better bonus all around. The only thing to note is that you'll have to make changes to your skill tree and you'll have to get 1 point in Bastion so we get 120 thorns because we don't have any thorns by default. So you'll just have to make sure you get that. If you do get a Shroud of False Death, then you'll get this by default and then you could take Revenge in your board instead. But I think for now, if you just get Spirit just to get the 15x straight away, and then the damage to elites is just really nice to have. We just don't need to buff this any further. The next glyph is Canny. So this is just doing non-physical damage. Pretty self-explanatory. Again, I would get all these other bonuses later. We don't care anything about crit damage. The Primal War down here. So we should be able to get the max barrier generation by default. So I've just left this for now, just for the points is pretty bare. Non-physical damage, so we obviously want to get this. Convergence, this caps out at 60%, so you will need to get a fair amount of non-physical damage early on. So while I was leveling, I went back and forth to get these, like these extra ones here of 10% non-physical damage to make sure I hit that 60% cap. And then later as I progressed, I took away those points so I could use them elsewhere, mainly for getting like resist and armor. So you want to make sure you get this armor here and get the resist down here as well. And the final one, Headhunter. So it's just giving us a straight buff to elite damage. And yeah, we need to do a lot of damage to bosses, so this one's just pretty important as well. You could also slot this in for Revenge to get like the 15% multiplier as well. But I found Headhunter's just pretty standard and just nice to have in general. Again, lastly, the seasonal powers. So we're rocking Alacrity. Your basic skills gain 30% attack speed. This is awesome, so you just want more attack speed. The dash range is increased by 50%. This is really good for farming and just mobility, so we can just jump around, and that's what I really love about this build. So this just really helps it come online. And the third attack happens every second attack, which I showed before. Then, actually, I'm not running past Siphon. This is for my Touch of Death build. 1 second. We would be running Accelerating Chaos. The main reason why we want to do it is we don't actually care about the chaotic burst dealing 2600 damage, but we do care about a random active cooldown being reduced by 0.5 seconds. This will just help our protector cooldown. And we're running a beast cornered, so for every 10% life you're missing, you gain 20x damage. So this is going to give us a 100% multiplier, because we're going to be sitting at 50% all the time. And Mard Guard, which is what's capping us at 50%. And this is really going to help because, one, it gives us a 20x on armor, so we can reach that armor cap. It's going to give us maximum resist, which is nice. And then it's going to give us 100% barrier and fortified generation. So this is going to help us get that barrier cap. Again, that goes hand in hand with Viscous Shields, the Paragon node, which is giving us damage based on how much we have, up to 66% on our shield. So we want to make sure our barrier is up full. So this is giving us 100%. It's just awesome. There are a few outliers, so you could run back off. As I was saying, with the, if you just like hit this on the ground, our third hits are actually doing damage from afar. So you could actually put in back off, but I just found it to be, pretty annoying. I mean, one, like your character also wants to jump in all the time, but I mean, it is a possibility. And I think that's it. There's not like too much flexibility. Most of these are all for core skills. You could run Crazy Brew if you get, I guess, a lot of cooldown reduction. It'd be really nice to have, but the only thing is that it goes on a cooldown itself. And I don't think chaotic cooldowns we care about too much, although it might help with the protector, but I just found it to be too random. And yeah, we want to run a beast corner. It's giving us like the biggest multiplier we got for this build because we don't really benefit from overpower here. And the Conviction of Spirits, if you get this first, just chuck it on. It's pretty nice to have. You get all the benefits from all the upgrades, so you potentially could have the Protector, and you could also have the Devourer. So the Devourer is giving us a 100x poison damage. So you could have 100x poison damage up, and you could have the Protector up at the same time. But it's not going to happen that much, and it's not that consistent. So I found these to be the best all around, that we're getting some cooldown reduction here for the Protector. We're getting our just overall nice to have Alacrity. And then these two are just giving us 100x, along with giving us a massive barrier generation, which is really just going to help us overall. Alright, if you made it this far, you must be really into Withering Fist. I do have some items to give away, basically, to anyone who's doing the Withering Fist build. So I do have, yeah, guess if you're leveling up +3 basic skills, Withering Fist, Withering Fist, Withering Fist with armor, Withering Fist. And then I've got a few GA Seppen Zentax and some other Seppen Zentax, and I got a few Heshes as well. So if anyone needs this, just leave a comment down below, and I can get in contact with you to copy all of these so we can get everyone Withering Fist up and running. Otherwise, I hope this build really helps. Just let me know if there's anything else in the comments that's like not really clear, or why I've done something a certain way, and I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can. All right, thanks guys. Enjoy fisting.